of September 9th. Tonight on our agenda are capital budget items. But before we get started, because we have participants remotely, we have to do a roll call vote for attendance, and all votes and motions will be done through roll call. Please say if you're here. Denny?
Yes.
Josette?
Yes.
Ally?
Here.
Andrew?
Here.
Steve?
Yes.
Susan?
Here.
Jeff?
Yes.
Kathleen? Yeah.
Here.
Oh, okay. Lucy? No. Jean?
Yes.
Doug?
Here.
Mark Sullivan?
Here.
Lisa?
Here.
Larry?
Here.
And myself. So we have 14. All righty. We're going to jump right into Article 6. With Department of Public Works, Capital Infrastructure Improvements. Fosberg.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening to everybody. First on Article 6 is capital improvement infrastructure, capital infrastructure improvements. The first item is the Adam Dam permitting and peer review. This is to design and for the permitting to repair and upgrade the current dam, which is right near the Washington Street, Stone Street intersection. Once all the permitting is done, the estimated cost for all of these upgrades is $1.5 million, and it would be a 65-35 split with the NRCS, which is the National Resource Conservation Commission. The request was for $60,000, and capital budget voted favorable action for $60,000 out of free cash. Next would be drainage and roadway improvements. In particular, this is June Street in East Walpole. This is to correct and prevent the groundwater that has been running out in that street for many years, and it is really a hazard, especially in the wintertime, from icing. This will be for the length of the roadway, and the request was for $280,000, and favorable action was voted for the $28,000 out of free cash. Next would be a bridge study master plan. There's approximately 15 bridges throughout the town. This would be a master plan of the bridges which would analyze and prioritize repairs. This would actually analyze the condition and the repair schedule. Request was for $60,000, and favorable action was voted 6-0 by the Capital Budget Committee. Next would be the drainage study in areas 1 to 5. The study will include School Street, Hemlock Street, McDonald Circle, Common Street, Washington Street, and the MBTA bridges at Route 27 and West Street. These areas are always subject to flooding and heavy rains. Their request was for $120,000, and $100,000 was voted at favorable action out of free cash for that. Next would be traffic signal construction at the Washington Street, Polly Lane, Short Street intersection. As we all know, that's been a real hazard, a dangerous intersection for many, many years. So this will finally, hopefully, correct that problem. This is, the cost would include the construction of the drainage in the area, sidewalks, curving, paving, and all of that, along with the traffic signals themselves. The request was for $650,000, and it was voted favorable action, $650,000 out of free cash. Next would be the bridge rehabilitation design. This is for the Elm Street bridge, or more like culvert, that is over the Neponset River, right near the intersection of East Street and Elm Street. We're looking for to prepare the plans, the bid documents, and this will also include a Chapter 85 review, which would be through the local engineering, state and Army Corps of Engineers in the permitting. The request would be is for $212,000, and capital budget approved voted to approve $200,000 out of free cash. Next would be the synthetic turf replacement fund. We have conducted an annual, we've contributed to this fund annually. Usually it was about $50,000. This year, the request was for $75,000, but we voted favorable action for $100,000. There are now 3 fields. Before, that fund would just cover the one high school field, but now this will also cover the replacement of the 2 synthetic fields that are on the Route 1A athletic fields. Next would be the new playground equipment at the Carolyn Woodward Playground, which is right across the street at Center Pool. This would be a complete playground replacement of the 40-year-old playground that is currently there. This will include included in this is a rubberized surface on the bottom, and it will also make it fully ADA compliant. Our request is for $332,000, and favorable action was voted for $332,000 out of free cash. Next would be the streetlight conversion. This would convert all of the streetlights in town to LED. This here, excuse me. Okay, so what we would have to do is actually purchase the existing streetlights from Eversource, which is, if you have that paper, is estimated at $206,000. Purchase and install the new LED lighting, which is $450,545, and then the various wireless controls and contingencies of $43,455. This here, with these new lights, it will reduce the town's electric bill for the lights by about 50% per year, and it would be an estimated 3 to 4 year payback on these lights. The request was for $800,000, and favorable action out of free cash for $800,000 was voted. I just want to make a point. I had asked the town administrator to maybe work on getting that $206,000 purchase fee down. It's I don't know why we're going to pay for something that we're going to end up throwing away and not using. So, and would also be taking the burden of replacing of the upkeep of these lights. So, I know Jim's already got them down from about $500,000 to the $200,000, but we want to go lower, so we asked them to do that. Next is Blackburn Hall improvements. This is to replace the slate roof with a metal roof, and it would also be to air condition the upper hall. Don Anderson, superintendent of buildings, has requested that they use dual mini splits up there, which would act as heat and AC. And I don't know if the town gets rebates on these, but you do get a larger rebate if they're dual action anyways. Their request was for $425,000. Favorable action was voted $425,000. Next would be the replacement of the town hall generator. This is to replace this older unit that is here, and it would also upgrade the power outsource to power the whole town hall. Right now, the existing generator will not supply electricity to the whole town hall. The request was for $275,000. The capital budget committee voted $150,000 out of free cash, and the rest of the money to make up for the balance of what was requested. There is leftover money from the other, some of the other generators that we've been replacing the past few years. We've been trying to replace one a year for, I think, the last 4 or 5 years, so all of the buildings would be, have their own generators. But, so there was leftover money from previous capital expenditures. Next, Old Post Road School improvements. This would be to redesign the media room and portable shelving, and they wanted to install portable shelving to make it a multi-use room instead of just for the media, but it could be used for other subjects. The request was for $240,000, and no action was taken on that at this time. Next would be the Emergency Repair Fund. This would be system-wide. excuse me a second here, this is the emergency repair fund for the building maintenance department. This would allow building and maintenance department to do emergency repairs without having to come and request for funds. And this is something we try to do annually anyways. That number fluctuates, but this year the request was for $50,000 and voted favorable action for the $50,000. Next would be painting and demolition at the Old Town Hall. This would be to paint and repair the clock tower and the cupola. It also would demo the former police dispatch area and the booking areas. The original, so the request was for $285,000, and the original recommendation from the town administrator was $130,000. But the capital budget voted, when we get to it later, about the retirement fund. We did not vote favorable action for that. So there was like, so we voted that money, which is $23,000 of free cash, and it was also $27,295 out of leftover out of prior capital monies. So the favorable action for that for the Old Town Hall is $180,295. Okay, so it would be, so it would be a total of $180,295. Next would be in the schools. This would be playground renovations at the 4 elementary schools. This is various equipment at each site, and it would all be ADA compliant. Each school is actually requesting different types of equipment or to replace different types of equipment. The total request was for $200,000. Favorable action was voted for the $200,000, and that would be about $50,000 for each one of the 4 schools. Next would be the Walpole High School driveway and parking extension. This is to extend the drop-off area in the front of the school. You know how the driveway comes in halfway at the school right now? This is to extend, or have the beginning of the driveway where the service entrance is at the, I guess it would be the north end of the property, and have that driveway come all along and see if we can actually add parking. There's a real problem with cars queuing at pickup and drop off out onto Common Street, and it's kind of dangerous with the hill in the corner coming up when you approach that area. This article includes design and the construction. The request was for $600,000, and that's what was voted favorable action, $600,000 out of the free cash. Next is the Walpole High School retaining wall in the front of, along the front. And the drainage isn't that good in that area, and the bricks are starting to deteriorate, and also the cement is coming apart, the mortar joints, the cement joints on the bricks. And this here would also preserve the donor bricks. There was many bricks that were bought, you know, as donations, and some of them are starting to deteriorate. I guess the front, some of the bricks is coming apart in the front. That request is for $180,000, and favorable action was voted $160,000 out of free cash. Next would be information and technology. This would be to replace the aging fiber optic network system, switching system-wide. The average age of the current network switches are about 12 years old, and the replacement of these is crucial to the continued reliability of the system. The request was for $50,000 out of free cash, and favorable action for $50,000 was voted on that. Next would be the Bay Circuit Trail downtown identification. This would give trail signage in the downtown area, and also upgrade the Springbrook, the kiosk that is in Springbrook. This is really to help promote the awareness of the trail and create downtown traffic for the businesses. The request is for $10,000. Favorable action was voted for the $10,000. Next would be public parking signage. This will promote awareness of the Central District parking in the downtown area and also to guide visitors to such areas. That request was also for $10,000. Favorable action was for $10,000 out of free cash. So that is all of Article 6. The total request in Article 6 was $5,124,000. The town administrator had allotted $4,367,000, and the capital budget committee voted $4,417,295. Out of that, $4,390,000 was out of free cash, and $27,295 was out of capital improvements. And that's where the total of the 4,417,295 comes from.
Let's start at the top. Any questions with regards to the engineering department section? Andrew?
Yes, I have 4 questions. I know that's a lot, but this is, aside from the middle school vote, probably the most expensive article in dollar figures that we'll vote on this fall town meeting. Before I ask my 4 questions, thank you to Capital Budget Committee Chair Forsberg and Rick at DPW and Carl, the town engineer. There's a lot of detail-oriented issues here, so thank you for this overview. My first question is the first item. In Article 6, the Allen Dam permitting and peer review, the study to upgrade the dam at Washington and Stone. Chair Forsberg, you said that is expected to cost $1.5 million. Now, I asked this not out of skepticism, but just to be curious, what's wrong with the dam at Washington and Stone that requires potentially a $1.5 million upgrade?
That's our share.
Excuse me?
The $1.5 million.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
The $1.5 million, Andrew, would be our share of the 65-35 split. These improvements are currently under design. So in order to make the improvements, the town will have to appropriate $1.5 million probably next year to complete the construction. So that 1.5 is the town's share of the 65-35 split.
Thank you, Rick. But I'm asking, why does it need to be upgraded? Remind me, why does the dam at Washington and Stone need a $1.5 million upgrade?
There are deficiencies noted in the spillway system and the under drain system. Right. The actual construction is a little over $6 million.
Okay, so I guess, is it right now the dam, is it flooding? Is that what we're trying to fix?
No, this is to address deficiencies that were noted by the Department of Conservation. There are deficiencies that need attention, and these are those deficiencies. It's
Okay.
not in imminent danger of collapse, if
Got
that's
it.
your question.
No, hey, look, okay, I'm all for spending $60,000 to study this. I think it's important, obviously. I just, before we spend 1.5 million, I'd just like to know, I would like to just understand more why it needs to be upgraded. So that's my first question.
Right, just on clarification on the $60,000, the town's not paying for the design. It's for a peer review of the design that's currently being performed. And also the town is responsible for the permitting. So that's what
Great.
the $60,000 is for.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for that clarification, and I'm in support of it. I just want to know, as the town embarks on this upgrade of this dam, what those drainage engineering technicalities mean. I'm just curious, because it's a significant investment, that's all. My second question is, for the fourth item, drainage study of areas 1 to 5. Request was 125,000, granted 100,000 unanimously. It's for a flooding study. Okay, sounds important. so here's my question. Is there a map for the entire town of the flood-prone areas that need to be studied for drainage?
There is a drainage map of the entire system. The areas that have been identified are through observation and institutional knowledge of the staff and the chronic problems that we typically address during moderate to heavy rainfall events. So it's based on the areas that we have to attend to during those weather events.
Thank you, Rick. And I, again, want to reiterate, like that first question, I support this $100,000 for this drainage study. And I asked that question because I would hope the town helps educate us about where are the flood-prone areas. So that's the second question. Third question. For the largest item in Article 6, $800,000 for
Andrew?
streetlight.
Andrew, I just want to stay on the engineering aspect right now and cover everything under engineering, and then we'll move down to the next
Yeah.
part.
That is everything under engineering.
I know,
All I'll
but I mean,
say
you've
is,
got other people with questions on engineering.
okay, great. I have
I'll
two
come back to
more.
you.
Come back to me later. I have two more.
Okay.
We won't forget about you.
Kathleen, did you have a question on the engineering aspect of the article?
No, I wasn't engineering and Ally's ahead of me anyway.
Okay, Ally?
Hi, thank you. Question on the traffic study, the construction signal for Washington Short and Poly. That's obvious, my neighborhood of town, and we have seen many of horrific accidents there. Is there any access to any like state or grant money or things like that, because it is such a dangerous intersection and has a long-standing history of really horrific accidents there?
No, Ellie, not that I'm aware of. Not for a
Okay.
local signal like that.
So, well, that's what I was wondering, just kind of, is it more on local? Because I thought before when it was talked about speed, and that I may be thinking about 1A rather than there, but that is just, that part of the road is strictly up to the town and our funding.
Correct.
Okay. The next question is about the bridge rehabilitation for Elm Street. So that's where the train goes over, right? Is that the bridge we're talking about?
No, this is at the intersection of East Elm and, if you're familiar with the old Station Street, that's now a parking lot. There are
Okay.
two bridges. There's one on Elm Street and one on East Street. This is not the railroad overpass. This is just for, it's over the roadway, not over the railroad.
Okay, I just wanted to check in on that, because then I was just curious of what part the train or anything helps to keep that structure going. All right, that is all I had on engineering.
Larry? Engineering?
On the Allen Dam, is that 65-30, is that 60 grand, our 65%, or is that just 100% of our cost?
The $60,000, the town is responsible for them permitting. Included in that $60,000 is the permitting and the peer review of the design that's currently being performed.
And there's no split, 65-30?
Correct.
Oh, okay. On the drainage study, 1 through 5, the town administrator recommended, or the department recommended 125. We came to a conclusion of 100. Was there some reason why it was reduced?
The $125,000 number that we had requested was a best guess estimate. We have nothing to really confirm either way, whether 100 or, I can tell you 125 wouldn't be enough, 100's not gonna be enough to do what we want to do eventually, study the whole town that we have, the areas that we have problems with. So the $100,000 is a good start. It'll at least, get our foot in the door, so to speak, and allow us to move forward.
Is that something you put out to bid, or is there some company that just does that stuff?
We use professional services procurement type RFPs,
Right.
RFQs.
Thank you. I'm good.
Any other questions under the engineering?
I have a
Yes.
question. So I'm just, the traffic light, $650,000 for a traffic light just seems exorbitant. Can you just tell me why it would cost that much?
Well, I think we do have a breakdown in here, right? It's like,
I mean, I'm just
Like
curious, is
2 or
it
3
really, like,
pages.
I'm just thinking it's a light, right? It,
No.
really?
Yeah, but this is also drainage, curbing, sidewalk, you have to reconfigure, I think we're trying to
Right,
line
it's
up.
not just for the light mark, it's for the actual reconstruction of the intersection. The configuration of the intersection has to be changed a little bit to make it more practical for a streetlight. They're trying to get it more square, and rather than offset. So there's gonna have to be a certain amount of construction and paving as well that needs to be done to complete the project. So that's a complete project, not just the equipment for the signal.
Okay, thanks.
Is there any turn lanes being added to this, or just general realigning so things comes
No
more
room,
square?
I don't think there's any
I,
room for this.
I don't believe there are any
Sure,
turn lanes. I don't think the intersection's wide enough for that.
Okay. Yes.
Quick comment. You know, we've done a good job planning ahead for some of the capital projects, and the dam is gonna need it, $1.5 million. Are we looking to start putting money away now?
We've already worked, Jody and I and Lisa have worked to program it into the borrowing for next year, if necessary.
I just want to say, for a second, the dam is very important to me, because when I was growing up downtown here at East Street and 1A, used to flood. My parents had pictures of canoes down there. So when they built the dam, they did the culvert, which is at the end of Spring Brook, that goes over under the downtown and comes out to the Ponce River there, and there hasn't been a flood since, so, but the dam holds a lot of that water back, so it doesn't come down. So if that dam is ever breached, then we'd be in trouble, I think, so. So it's pretty important to keep that thing there.
I think also during the explanation we got a capital budget, it was a lot of underground stuff, not so much the above-ground appearance. It was a lot of piping and stuff underground that you don't necessarily see, but because of what they're doing with the survey and stuff and the exploration that they've been doing, it's showing its deficiencies. So before we have a problem, we're addressing it.
Any other questions on engineering? Okay. Parks and Rec Department, any questions? Larry?
On the turf replacement fund, I get it, you're bumping it from 75 to 100 because we have 3 fields. How much is in that fund now, and what do you expect it to be used for? I know it's, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's about $1 million a field these days, or am I even off on that number?
You're off a bit. We just recently redid Turco Field, not this summer, the previous summer.
Yeah.
And it was close to $500,000 to do that field. And so we used all the previous money. Maybe we have about 50 or 75,000 in there from last town meeting, so not under 100,000.
So we were putting 100 in before.
Away for it. We used the money we put away because the field was 12 years old.
Right.
And now we're on a new cycle. putting
So
away.
walk me through this. If we've got 3 fields and they're, say, let's say 1.5 to replace, if we've got a life of, say, 10 to 15 years, okay, we're putting about 100 grand a year. Is that the thought process, the math
It's
behind it?
the thought process, and we're also thinking that the user fees, which the Recreation Department is kicking in up at the new turf fields, they're gonna be covering some of the costs too to offset it too.
Thank you.
Ally, were you in on this one?
I just wanted to give the new playground equipment, very much needed. I'm really excited to hear that. Our downtown is sorely missing a place like that, and revitalizing downtown with all the great changes that we're making. I think it's fantastic that we're putting money to redo that playground.
Andrew, are you in on Parks and Rec, or
No,
next section?
no.
It's just applauding.
He's just applauding. Okay.
I can actually personally attest, so I live in Dr. Rogel's old house, so at 2 o'clock in the morning, every once in a while, someone gets in the playground and you can hear it bounces off the Verizon building and travels up the street. I hear conversations too, so in case you guys are ever there yelling at your kids, I know what's going on in town.
Good to know. Okay, streetlight conversion, I know that was one for Andrew.
Yeah, that's the third question of 4 that I have on this article. It's the most expensive expenditure in this article, which is the second most expensive article, I think. on the warrant. So, streetlight conversion to LED. In the abstract, I love this idea. I really do. Just, you had me at that, LED. However, Chair Forsberg says that currently it's estimated that the replacement for the lights is around $260,000. Now,
Excuse me, that's to purchase the existing lights from
To
Eversource.
purchase- yes, to purchase from Eversource the existing lights. Got it. Okay. And then 400 plus thousand, more than 400,000 to install the new lights. Is that correct?
I think it was $550,545 to replace the lights.
Okay, so 550 to replace the lights, 260 roughly, to buy the lights back from the current lights from Eversource.
206,
206. 206.
correct.
And you said that Jim Johnson, the town administrator, had bargained Eversource down from around 500,000. Is that for the light repurchase?
That's for the purchase price, the 500, about 500,000 down to the 206. We want to go lower.
So I think Jim's doing a great job to negotiate with a monopolistic company like Eversource. I just think that we should think hard about stories, of defense contractors paying $2,000 for a hammer. I just want to know, how much does this cost compared to the average lights that Eversource, monopolistically charges towns to buy back? I don't want us, I'm glad that Jim is bargaining this down. I'm just a little concerned at the price tag, and whether we're being stiffed. That's all, to be blunt.
So just to say, the numbers you have in front of you at $800,000, I think I can get it lower. I'm very confident, but these are the numbers that I have to work off of right at this given point in time. Whatever we don't use, and if we receive some green incentive money for this, we're gonna be turning this back. I just wanna be able to secure this money up front, which, when we have it, and if necessary, I hope I'm here a year from now, or maybe even less, and say, listen, conversion's complete. I have $400,000 left in this project. I'm gonna turn it back. We're gonna roll it forward towards another capital project next year, or maybe towards stabilization. So Andrew, it's the best number I have at this given point, but I'm gonna continue to negotiate it down.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I would even say it's a win anyways. I think the current bill is, for the streetlights, is about $26,000 a month that we're paying, and that would be cut by about 50% per month, so that's where we get the 3 to 4 year payback. A couple of nice neat features about the LED lights is they're adjustable, so if Mrs. Smith is complaining that the street light is too bright and she can't sleep at night, they can control it and dim it down. And they can make it brighter at certain times and make it dimmer. So they'll, I'm pretty sure every one of them will have a control, the majority of them at least would have the dimming flexibility. And also the LED lights, bulbs last much longer than the condensing ones. And then they give more light also, so it's a worthy project. It's just that he's gonna work his magic, I'm sure, so.
Larry, I have a question. If Eversource was at 500, now 200, and we're taking the lights, so in other words, we're lessening the power that we'll be using, correct? The idea is that these lights are more efficient, we're using less power, right?
Yeah.
So why is Eversource lowering the price for a product that we're gonna pay them less, in a sense, they're gonna make less money off us? And I guess I'm wondering why a company would do that.
I think streetlights are a real headache for them. We're constantly calling, the police department goes around at night, and, when the officers are a bit slow, they take down the numbers and feed them to the dispatchers send them over to Eversource, and they call the person their light ranger. He has to go out, he covers, they said one person covers 8 to 10 towns in the area. It's just a headache for them that they would like to see go. Another reason I like this is because it's gonna save us long-term on the operating budget. Drew just texted me and said that we budget about $225 a year. We think this is gonna knock that budget down once this is up and running by about $100,000 a year. So the payback on this thing is pretty quick.
I applaud the payback. So when we're buying them, do we now assume the maintenance, we're gonna be the light ranger, per se?
Yeah.
And
Pros
is there,
and
what's
cons.
the cost? I mean, okay, we're saving money on that side and the power. What's it gonna cost? Do we have to man up for I'll use your term, the light ranger?
I won't be looking to hire another person. I'd be looking to sub that work out and just bring in a company to address or be on call.
And that still will be ahead of the game in a sense economically because we're saving money on the electrical usage.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions on the light conversion? Ally?
The cost, I think, is high, as everyone's going to say. 800,000 seems like a bit much, but I'm glad some of the electric bills and our annual budget of that have been brought up, because every year we kind of go over this and we look at this line item and say, why are we spending so much money? And Jim goes to the explanation of how we go about trying to get lights replaced and turned back on. Overall, I think long-term, it's the right decision to make.
Question. Curious, with the replacement, are you just replacing the bulbs, or are you gonna be taking fixtures down off of light poles and putting up new fixtures?
The intent is for the bulbs, but obviously if the poles are in bad shape or what they hang off of, is the fixture is in bad shape, we'll replace that too.
And then the other question is it a possibility of using solar and cutting out Eversource entirely?
No, not at this time.
And the other thing too is I don't know if they would let, because Eversource will still own the poles, correct? So would they allow us to attach solar to their poles?
No, we would own the poles
We would
altogether.
own, okay.
I wouldn't want
We'd own
Our streets
we're
relying
purchasing the poles too?
solar power to.
You just hold the fixture? Just the fixture, I'm sorry
Yeah.
about that. I was thinking of your solar question, so yeah, just the fixture, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Eversource doesn't have any program where they actually do the conversion themselves for their poles they own?
Not at this time, but there's talks that they're being pushed to do it. So I'm hoping that's why I told Ed, I think that 200,000 number is really gonna go down. And there's a program out there that's pushing them to do all this, so that's why.
I get the cost savings, I just, in my mind, do we want to be light pole owners?
But we're not
We're gonna
gonna,
maintain them,
we're not owning the
everything.
poles, we're just owning the
just
arm
the
that comes
fixture on
off.
the top?
Yeah,
That's it?
yeah. The bulbs. And the bulbs, yeah.
It's the bulbs that give us the biggest problem, because when they go out on Lincoln Road, it could be out for a month, or it could be out for 2 months. Who knows whenever
It's
this
been
guy
out
gets
for a
out.
couple of years.
Okay. Any other questions on light poles?
Yeah, me, Mark?
Go ahead,
Kathleen? So through you, maybe it's Jim, but maybe it's somebody else. You know, we had the vote on the green communities, and I'm just wondering how this fits into that. And also Jim mentioned some grants may come through. If you can talk at all about that, what we could hope to recoup through grants.
So, Kathleen, that's why I mentioned the $400,000 number. As part of being accepted into the green communities, our initial upfront grant looks like it's gonna be about $166,000. But again, I'm budgeting as if we haven't received that yet. The costs are all upfront. That's why I'm looking at this and saying, I think maybe next year I'll be here with 400,000 left in this one. So this would be our first green communities project that we'd be using that grant money for.
Anything else? Okay. Building maintenance. Andrew, is this your fourth one?
Yes. The two items that were not funded, the Old Post Road school improvements and the high school partial roof replacement. I'm just curious, you know, given the amount of free cash we have and the favorable interest rate environment in terms of investment, whether these items were delayed for this town meeting because they're just not really cost-effective, period, or whether it's just not the right time. We want to do them later.
Actually, we didn't have very much discussion on that, so that money was requested, excuse me a second. Where were we?
Maybe Tony Anderson?
So I can kind of speak to that and help me. I believe when I went back and looked at this, Don was still, actually, now that it's coming back to me, we're continuing to replace the windows in the old Post Road School. We procured the windows this summer. However, they recently came in. Don has purchased them, he's storing them in his garage, but having the contractor get in there, he's having issues with scheduling and everything. As you might expect, everyone's busy. We're required to take the lowest, most responsible bidder. Sometimes that means we get pushed to the bottom as far as contractors, but it's scheduled. The reason, Andrew, I didn't recommend funding that is because I want to get this part of the old Post Road School closed out, and then next year reconsider possibly funding more projects at that school, so.
Hey, Jim, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Kathleen?
My question was around the painting and demolition, the booking area at the old town hall. Can someone talk about the project from a higher level and tell me what our thoughts are? And then sort of a general question for all. I'm always curious when the request is higher and then some rather arbitrary number shows up. Like, what do we lose out if we don't fully fund that?
So I can speak to that a little bit. So I've talked to you before when I'm budgeting and everything, and when I'm setting the capital budget, it's more or less, what can I make work? I go and meet with the department head and with Don, I've known him for a while. I just ask him straight up, what can you do for, is it 153,000 versus 285? What are we missing out on? The thought process behind the old town hall, and I was at New Pond Village yesterday talking about it in the 300th anniversary. I'd love the old town hall to be our centerpiece during the 300th celebration.
Believe me, Jim, I heard about your visit.
I saw your mom. So I'd love for that to be our centerpiece during that celebration in 2024. We've bid it out 2 or 3 times now, Fed? Yeah. We've had to try to get anyone in there, any company that's responsible or anyone at all, any interest. We've had a couple of tire kickers. We've had a couple breweries come through. I think one restaurant show some interest, but everyone blames everything on COVID, and well, they just didn't want to make that type of commitment to a building that they'd have a 30-year license agreement with. So it's getting to the point where we have to do something with it. Let's start to pick away at it. Dawn identified the booking room. We've worked with, what's his name, Mark Vega?
Juan Vega.
Juan Vega at the state level. We've taken them through. We've tried to get some economic development grants because the state wants to come in and promote this as a possible business or 20th century portable, like an office space for places. So we're just trying to bring this and make it more attractive to people who are interested in coming in there. Before he passed, Roger was over there, and now Emergency Management Director Lightbody is stationed over there. So we haven't shuttered the building altogether, but we're trying to keep it active. We've replaced the boiler over there as part of a grant that we received, and this is just more or less the next phase. We've cleaned the entire place out. We got rid of all the desks and all the furniture over there that wasn't being used. We surplused that out. So we're just trying to, I want to bring it up there and not have 23 approach us and say, oh, we got to do something with this building. You know, it's going to take a few years. So hope that answers your question.
It does, thanks, Jim.
Following up on that, the demolition that's involved, none of it's structural, correct?
No.
It's just fixtures.
It would just be the fixtures and the interior for the most part.
Because I was on the reuse committee, and one of the things we noticed was that any work done in that lower level could undermine the integrity of the exterior walls because there are insufficient footings and underpinning of the structure. So as long as we're just doing the cosmetic fixtures, we're good. But as soon as we start to tamper with load-bearing walls and so forth, we have to do substantially more work to secure the exterior frame.
The grand staircase there is something I'd love to have Don focus on. I walked through there with him and a contractor, and I was surprised at how much money it was gonna cost to bring that staircase back to where it once was, and I thought, 20, 30,000, it was hundreds of thousands of dollars, just.
Any other questions on building maintenance? Just Larry.
On Blackburn Hall, I see we're gonna what's the long-range plan? I mean, are we gonna trying to keep it, or are we gonna build something new? Or, I guess if we're putting this kind of money, we're gonna keep it. I'm just wondering, it's an older building, and I think quite honestly, it's done its job for the last, I don't know how many years, 70, 80, 90 years. 100, and I'm just wondering if it makes sense to think about a long-term strategy for it.
So just thinking back to my days when we did the public safety building study, one of the thoughts was, let's put a building over on that structure for the fire station or police station. We did a lot of research, and Pat, chime in if I'm wrong on this. I believe there's a deed restriction on that building when, I think it was the Blackburn family, or whatever. Yeah. The Gilmore, which one? You remember?
No, Devon's.
So when the family gifted the building to the town, I think it was 1917 or 03, they put a restriction on it that it can only be used for recreation and passive use there. We're boxed in, it's considered a historical building. Ideally, with the recreation department, if the middle school goes through in November, I'd like to see if we could make part of whatever the board decides to do with Johnson Middle School, if they decide to keep it, or maybe they decide to make it into condos, but if we keep it, I'd love to have it be used as part of it as a recreation center, because the basketball courts are in high demand over there. Brendan could rent it out and make a considerable amount of money, be profitable, maybe rent the other side out to a tech or something, but I think long-term, it's gonna be in the town's possession forever. I don't see us knocking it down.
I am okay with keeping it a wreck. I'm just saying maybe we need to think about a new one, because we're almost putting Band-Aids on it.
Yeah.
It seems.
Agreed, but we're trying to get through. I mean, Don did the far post closest to the fire station. I think he's doing the near post closest to this building now, right in front of the building. And it's, that stuff's been neglected year over year. We have put Band-Aids on it. That's why, long-term, he's trying to invest a considerable amount of money. If you look at our capital the last few years, I think it's maybe 100 last year, 100 the year before. This year, it's, almost, what's that, 200-ish? Yeah. So we're trying to continue to maintain it.
Okay. Question on the generator, the town hall generator. It started at 275, went to 150, I think, and maybe I misheard it, but that gap is going to be funded because of some excess funds from prior generator upgrades, and I'm just curious, how much is it sitting, is the 125 sitting in there, or is it 300,000, or what, approximate? I mean, what might be sitting in there in that unused generator fund, I guess?
I'll tell you exactly how much. You know,
A little over $100,000 left over from previous project.
yeah. 132. There it is. Yeah. So 132 is left over from a previous generator request that Don had put in it was the Elm Street School, right, Don?
Yep.
Okay, so that pretty much,
So I looked at Don's request and I said, listen, we got this borrowing that we had requested a year or two ago. You completed the project. Jody, can we use this money because it was generic or vague enough that it said emergency generators townwide? So that's why we decided.
so those excess funds were from a borrowing
Yeah.
that wasn't used, okay. On the painting and demolition, the 285, so this is the town hall, the old building? Okay, and, okay, I guess you're gonna only spend 100 and, maybe you covered this, and maybe I just didn't get it, but the 153 versus 285,
So what they're proposing here is, originally I recommended 130 after the capital budget committee did their thing. They're recommending the 153 and the 27 left over from prior year capitals down below there. So
Okay.
about $100,000 difference.
oh, I see, okay. I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Yes, Mark.
I have a question on the emergency generator for the town hall. How often is it actually used?
Don, do you switch it on about once a week, just to test it and everything?
Well, it does a test run weekly, just to maintain it, but To predict how often it gets used every year depends on that particular year. I would say last winter, that building was on generator probably about 4 times. And like we say, it doesn't do the second floor. So every time that building does lose its power, we're only powering the first floor. Everybody on the second floor can't work. So we looked at it, we need a generator, and we certainly don't want to continue with a building that we can't operate. So the generator's going to do the whole building.
Well, I guess that's what my question is. So I understand an emergency generator for the schools, the safety. You know, here in the town hall, you know, every once in a while, the power goes out. Do the employees, one, really stay here and work under the emergency generator? Or with COVID, everyone's used to working home, do the employees leave? So I guess what I'm wondering is, you know, for $275,000, how many hours a year is the generator here really needed? And if it's, you know, not that many hours, I'm curious.
That 1 hour that it's needed, you want to have it working.
And it's
Okay.
not just a question of, we're trying to do the whole building, let's do it. The question is, the generator that's there needs to be replaced. So the question comes, do I just replace it with a generator that isn't sufficient? Or do I replace it with a generator that's going to do the whole building and allow the school department, engineering, everybody upstairs is going to be able to stay working through any time that we lose our power? It wouldn't make sense to spend all that money in my opinion, it wouldn't make sense to replace the generator now and not upgrade it to do the whole building.
I think even further, you know, if you look at Town Hall, there may not be people here, but it is the central hub of all of our technology across the board for the entire town. Our surveillance for public safety, all of the communications go over this, you know, our TV broadcast, everything kind of hubs upstairs over our fiber optic network, which is also being spoken about tonight. But if we lose power to that, it's, you know, it's catastrophic.
Okay.
you know.
Fine, I'm all set, thanks.
Any other questions? Okay. Let's see, school department requests? Any questions?
The driveway parking lot extension. So I guess my question is, I mean, I've been up there, they're queuing all the way past Cascade Terrace right now. And just moving the entrance isn't gonna fix the queuing. You're still putting the same amount of cars in the same span. I just, not quite sure how this is gonna fix that problem.
That's why we called it design and construction. And initially, this request was submitted, and I said, you got this design in here, we don't know what it entails. So first of all, we have to design it, and I'm hoping that we can work with the school department too. And we have $400,000 that we asked for pre-COVID to look into a feasibility study for the building, possible expansion there. My hope, and Superintendent Goff, I think, is committed to doing this too, is link those two together, and how can we get the best bang for our buck, maximize that space that we're in right there. I know the police department, I was driving by there today, and there was 2 motorcycles in front there. It's a problem, you know it's a problem, as you mentioned. So I agree that just trying to find another hole to stick people in, to queue through there, isn't the answer. We need to design it professionally, and then have, hopefully, the remaining balance of whatever the design cost is, minus the $600,000 will be enough to address the parking there.
Mr. Chairman, I think I can, maybe the school department can verify, but there was thought of trying to get 2 lanes to come in, 2 loading and drop-off lanes in that driveway.
So that's what we're currently doing in the existing driveway. We have doubled up lanes that's helping that. This would be an extension of those double lanes all the way down to that service entrance.
Quick question, are they gonna use the common entrance of the service entrance? Or are they going to actually have an entrance near the service entrance? Because the service entrance right now, I believe you use for your buses, and you don't want somebody tying up because they took a wide turn or a shallow turn and blocked the buses from getting in.
So I think that goes back to Jim's point. That would be
Design.
the main entrance.
Yeah.
Would we leave the existing one there? That's all needs to be decided, but it
Okay.
would definitely be doubled up queue lanes to fit in more cars.
Okay. Other questions?
I have just one on the 4 playgrounds. Are these just, you're gonna refurbish what's already existing, or are you taking out the existing playgrounds and putting in all new equipment?
So they're in varying states of need for help, so it's 50,000 to be customly designed for that playground, depending on what condition it's in. So 50,000, as you heard from the prior proposal at 300,000, wouldn't be nearly enough to replace one. So it's just really adding, repairing, and fixing.
Thank you.
All right. Questions on the
Just, hold on, are they all ADA compliant now? They all, to my knowledge, are ADA compliant.
Fiber optic replacements, questions? No. Community economic development? No, okay. There being no other discussion on Article 6, I'll entertain a motion.
Give you a motion for,
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I'm sorry, if we're gonna, are we taking a vote or are we just making a motion to take a vote at a later time? I'm wondering about specifically the retirement assessment study. And if we vote this, we're taking away from the funding in Article 7. So I'm not sure how that, what kind of action we're taking here.
Your motion could be to defer the vote, and if everybody's in agreement, then we'll defer the vote until after reading the other articles.
Okay, yeah, then I would like to talk about that retirement study just a little more. So I would like to defer the vote or make a motion to defer the vote for a while. That's.
I don't think you need a motion.
Separate? Yeah.
Just asked to defer it.
Yeah, we can just choose to go through all of the,
Yeah, we can defer and vote at the end.
vote all of them at the end. I don't
Okay.
think sounds,
All righty.
that's more than fair.
There's no motion on the table, so we'll defer and move on to Article 7. Capital equipment purchases.
Okay, the first item here is the Retirement Systems Assessment Study. This is to see if the town is, if there is a better retirement system that the town could join, and if it would be legal to do so. The town is currently in the Norfolk County Retirement Association, and there was mention at last town meeting to come out of that and see if we could do better with some other company. I think the biggest thing for ours, for the capital budget, was that there was, is really no way for the town to leave the current Norfolk County system. And I think, excuse me, Josette, but I think you said you all got a memo on this today. But one of the big lines from town council here says, in my opinion, Article 20 as written is not binding. It remains my opinion that town meeting cannot revoke the town's acceptance of Chapter 32 of the general laws pursuant of the process. So, in other words, we really can't even leave that retirement board, according to town council, without the legislature's approval and vote, as far as we know. So, we think until you find the legal way to come out of this, it's throwing money away.
Yeah, the thing is, I think part of the idea about trying to do a study, though, was to find out before you get an act of legislation that then says, yes, you now can vote to leave, you need to know what it's gonna cost you to get out. And I think that was part of the reason why we wanted the study, because in the research I had done prior to Springtown meeting, everybody who was not part of a county retirement board, all the individual communities, they have their own retirement board, which means you're now appointing your own retirement board, you're hiring your own clerical staff to do all the paperwork, you're responsible for doing all the payments and coming up with your investment plan, because you cannot join the state plan. The state retirement plan has access to investments that we're entitled to invest in, and Norfolk County already does invest part of their portfolio in the state portfolio. They just don't do it at the same level that the state is doing it. They're being slightly more conservative, in which case, you know, we're getting lower returns because the county is being less aggressive, because the state can weather the ups and downs a little bit more because they're so massive. But the thing is, I think the study was basically there for, if the town wanted to take this over, what was it gonna cost us to do it? Or would it just be cheaper staying where we are and working with Norfolk County to maybe adjust the portfolio to closer match the returns that the state is getting? And I think that was the reason behind the motion at Springtown meeting, and why I think the selectmen were looking to get a study done. We pretty much resigned ourselves that we'd have to get an act of legislation to pull out, but before you pull out, what's it gonna cost us to do it on our own? Any other questions or concerns on the Board of Selectmen's request? Larry?
I didn't see this from town council, but town council advised us we can't pull out legally.
Yeah, so Larry, going back, this is the third town meeting in a row we've discussed this matter. So council has weighed in multiple times on this. I can share that with you. And what I think Ed or Josette was referring to is, I just shared with the chair and the vice chair and Josette as the clerk, just a reminder, the Capitol did discuss this matter. Here's the memo that they consider, which is basically the legal opinions going back, and I don't mind sharing. I actually thought of it at 4:30 today, and I said I'd at least send it to you guys, so I can share that with you if you'd like.
Is it a matter of law or opinion?
It's law. Back in the 1930s, the state said we have to regulate retirement plans for the communities, and that was the point at which you could opt out. And it basically said any community that did not create their own board back in the 1930s had to become part of a county plan. And that's why there are 5 county plans out there, and there are 7 or 8 major cities that have their own plans, and then there's the state plan, but basically everybody's been pigeonholed back in the 1930s into a plan, and that's their administrator, and in our case, it's Norfolk County.
So if they change the law, then it will be an option, I guess.
So-
If they change the law, the legislature would have to change the law.
The legislature would have to give us home rule control over our pension plan, and we would have to then turn around and go through the steps of setting up
But even
a way to
then-
manage it.
They're saying that
It's not gonna happen.
that's,
Yeah.
it isn't even just that, there's no, the law does not have any vehicle to exit.
Mechanism, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so even getting the home rule petition was
Right.
in question.
Yeah.
So you only asked the question, is it opinion or law? First part's law, there's no mechanism to exit. The opinion of legal counsel is even with the home rule.
Yeah, I think they have to change the whole law, it sounds like.
Yeah.
For it to be pliable for not just this county or town, but all the others.
Yeah. Josette?
Larry and Jean, because you're new, we got this legal opinion the first time, September 11th in '20, and then we got it again in March 3rd in '21, and I'm sure Jim's getting you copies right now.
Yeah.
Because I was going to bring my copy for themselves and make a decision for themselves as to what they wanted to do with it. And it was unanimous that we voted against wasting the money there and to repurpose it elsewhere where it could be utilized better.
Thank you.
Doesn't the state board, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Mark.
But doesn't the state board, it also monitors the performance of the state pension systems?
There's
And
an-
it can go in
There's an independent
and take
commission.
over a town's retirement plan. Like you'll see Fairhaven and other towns. So, this is sounds kind of stupid, but if Walpole withdrew from Norfolk, and then we do a really lousy job with our pension plan, the state will come in and take our pension plan over, and we'll be in the state
We'll be
pension
back
plan.
where we
So-
started.
But they'll
I
charge,
don't think that's the way we want to do it personally, but.
no, but they would also charge you for it. But yeah, there's an there is an oversight commission that is independent of the actual pension plans. So even the state pension plan is monitored by an independent commission. And they go through and they basically say, everybody send us your audited pension plan reports. And they go through and they do a review and so forth, and they release results for everybody to see. And they basically want to make sure that everybody is managing the plans and is in compliance with the law.
Just one other follow-up. You mentioned that the Norfolk County can have access to what the state
Yes,
pension.
If, part of the information that was passed out was a web link, and I went to that, basically that commission's results, and they basically said, here's the portfolios of the audited reports. And in Norfolk County was like 32% of this fund. And at the state level, the state had 48% in that fund. Well, that fund was doing 30% a year. So we're getting, 30% of 30%, the state's getting 48% of 30% income, so there's your gap. And the state also invested in foreign entities and this and that, and the Norfolk County's like, well, we're not putting money overseas and investing, we're staying home with our investments. So it's all asset mix,
Yeah.
basically.
So it sounds more like our representative to the Norfolk County Retirement Fund should be going to the county and saying, why aren't you mirroring what the state does? Because the state rocks, right? They're one of the best states versus us trying to figure out how we're gonna
How we're
pull
gonna take it
out
over
and join.
ourselves.
It's just much easier to go to them and say, you should be doing what they're doing. Do a bit, yeah.
Just,
So simple.
Yes.
hey, there you go, 50,000, well spent.
Yep.
We either crap the plan out,
Yep.
or we say do a better job.
Larry?
Are other towns in Norfolk County facing a similar question or dilemma? No.
This was all generated through a citizen's petition a couple times. The first time around, he lumped it together with
Same
health.
person.
Lumped them together with healthcare and says, well, you've got two different suggestions, you gotta split them. And at that time, we referred it back to him, and he came back with a separate article just for the pension. And at Springtown meeting, we basically said, we're gonna leave it up to the Board of Selectmen to decide if they wanna put together a research team and ask for funding to do it. So,
Thank you.
We got Doug up there.
yeah, okay, Doug?
Yeah, that was kind of where my question was going. I wasn't sure what happens to this study now that the town meeting asked it to be done, the board funded it. If we don't approve the $50,000, what happens to it? Does it go away? Is it something that's subject to appropriation at a
Yeah,
future time?
The motion at Springtown meeting was a non-binding resolution to charge the selectmen to make a decision on, is it worthwhile to research this topic more? And the Board of Selectmen says, yeah, we'd like to research it, can we get 50,000 to do it? Capital budget said no, and now it's our turn to say, we do or don't want to do it, and if we do want to do it, where are we going to get the funding for it?
All right, thank you.
Other questions on this first line item? Let's move on. Let's see. I asked it to-
That money was repurposed
Yeah.
up
That one
to,
is repurposed back into 6.
back into 6.
Yep.
So what do you want to do?
Yep, we're going to move down to the next line, then
Okay.
we've,
Keep reviewing.
yeah.
Okay, the next item is a request of $15,000, and this is for a National League of Cities Rail Training for Equity and Diversity. And this group does many levels of training and teaching, and you can go through the whole thing, but it's recommended, the $15,000 is recommended for probably a remote PowerPoint for department heads right now, which would be a start into this, and maybe department heads could, pass it down to their department, to their departments. So, the select board feels the need for further training. So, like I said, the request was for $15,000, and capital budget voted favorable action for the $15,000 in this. Next would be the Department of Public Works.
Actually, yeah, we got a couple quick questions.
No, I was gonna say, do we have questions? As we go through the process, it might be easier.
Just to move quicker.
As we go?
Yeah, just so,
Okay.
just to keep it going.
Yep, okay.
Doug's got his hand.
Doug, yes?
Do you have a question, Doug, or did you just, yeah, still up?
Kathleen?
I have a question. What would it cost to, through you, Mark, to train all the staff? As opposed to just, I mean, this is a serious topic that I think we need to make sure we are taking seriously. And sometimes if the department heads hear it and relay it, I don't know if it's as effective as everybody hearing the same message and then, discussing it after hearing it from an expert.
That would be hard to say. I mean, we have a,
They had a,
a
yeah.
chart here.
You were looking
And
at the
it's,
same chart.
and it's, pick which one you want. So I think the thought was that we would start with department heads. The start would be with department heads, and then maybe, extend that further at a later date, so.
So maybe I should have that chart, but I don't have that chart in front of me. Can you just, is it by numbers? Is it the number of people you train?
So what they did, Kathleen, was they did a short-term package was 11.7, intermediate was 23.5, long-term was 36, and sustained was 60, was almost 65,000. When I worked with the board on this, they were receptive. They had a presentation over, I think it was over the summer, on this. They were receptive to, let's get our department heads in, see how it goes. Maybe next year we put a little bit more for training town-wide. I actually talked to Superintendent Goff. They've had something similar in the school department. So the thought process on the, let's dip our toes in and start this, and then maybe next year come back for some more, or fund it permanently in administration or in personnel on our side. So this is definitely not the last you've heard of it, for sure.
Good. For purposes of full disclosure, I took that class through the school department and thought it was outstanding. And I thought I was aware of the issues, and I obviously only knew the tip of the iceberg. So I think it would be great for everybody to hear it. I'm glad we're starting somewhere, and I understand we can't do everything at once, so let's just keep it rolling.
Yes, Jeff?
So is it actual physical training that the department heads will get?
Well,
Or is this just
I think
material that's being?
Well, it's like a PowerPoint presentation, and the thought was, I think the first one was gonna be remote, but
Yeah.
it could be in person, but I think the first one was, they're planning to do it remotely, so.
And honestly, Jeff, lots changed since the select board heard the initial presentation over Zoom. We're now meeting in person, so if it's something we can do over at the library or one of the schools, we'll do it there in person, just what's feasible.
Next item?
Okay. Next would be in the Department of Public Works, Parks Department. This would be an enclosed landscape trailer, an 18-foot trailer. It's enclosed like you see a lot of the landscapers. This would save a lot of time in the morning and the afternoon. They have open trailers right now, so they're taking the mows and all the equipment off of the trailer, putting it inside the garage or into storage, and then having to take it back out and reload in the morning. So this enclosed trailer would protect the equipment outside, and they just have to hook up the trailer and leave in the morning and then drop it off at night. That request was for $14,000, and favorable action was voted for the $14,000. The next item would be a deck-over trailer. This is a 20-foot flatbed tilt trailer to transport the larger equipment, like the bigger mowers and whatever, from one location to the next. The deck over means that the bed is above the wheel well, so you have the full square footage of the trailer to use for storage. That request was for $12,000. It was recommended favorable action, $12,000 out of free cash in that one. The next in the cemetery is a request from the cemetery. This is also another enclosed landscape trailer. This would be an 18-foot trailer, and the same deal with this. It would protect equipment and eliminate the time of loading and unloading in the morning and the afternoons. The request for this trailer was $16,000, and it was voted favorable action for the $16,000. Next would be a stand-on blower. This is a stand-on riding, like leaf blower. They can do cleanups in much faster time. It's a very, very, very powerful unit that would increase the production, the work production. That request is for $12,000, and favorable action was voted for the $12,000 out of free cash.
You got one question, Jeff?
Quick question. Both the enclosed landscape trailers, same dimension, why are they different in price?
No, the first one is 18, excuse me, I said 18
said
foot.
18 on both?
It's 16 foot, the first one. Is that? Yeah, I'm sorry, the first one was 16 foot.
And
My
does that
mistake, I
cover-
wrote about, but it was a 16 foot, I know that, so.
Does that cover all your landscaping crews? The two? Or do you have more landscaping crews?
the combination of the deck over trailer, the existing trailers that we have in this enclosed trailer, will cover all.
Okay.
Next.
Okay. So the stand-on blower, I said that, $12,000, right? Okay, next is vehicle maintenance. The first item is to replace a 2006 Sterling six-wheel dump truck. This truck is pretty old, and also it's been beat up and there's rust on it, but also they stopped making these about 8 or 10 years ago, I think, so it's harder and harder to get parts every year. So the request is to replace this with a 10-wheel dump truck, which is a 10-wheel hook-type dump truck. And I don't know if you've seen any of these, maybe in a smaller version, but the truck has like a hook on it, and it can change bodies. So this can be a sander, a tank truck, it can be a flatbed, it can be you can carry dumpsters with it, and then it will have a sander for the wintertime. So it's really a multi-purpose truck. A lot of municipalities are going to this, and I know a lot of landscapers are buying these now, the smaller versions. And also, there's probably a need for another 10-wheel dump truck, because once the town takes over responsibility of Route 1A from the center to the Norwood Town line, we're gonna need a bigger truck to move snow. So that request was for $420,000, and capital budget voted favorable action for the $420,000.
Quick question, does that also include the sander for that truck, or do we have
I think it
sanders that
includes-
can be
yes.
put on?
It includes a sander, a flatbed, a tank system, and a dump
Okay.
body,
Okay,
and a plow.
all right.
Next would be to replace a 2007 Ford Ranger pickup truck, number 738. The frame is rusting, and don't know how much longer we'll be able to get a sticker on that. This here is a multi-use vehicle for the town recreation, building department, and anybody need, actually during voting and stuff like this, they transport the voting booths and all. This is, be a Ford F-150, and request is for $28,000. Favorable action was voted for the $28,000. Next would be replace a 2007 Ford Ranger. Oh, no, excuse me, were we gonna?
Yeah.
The first one was a Ranger, right? The previous one, I'm sorry, was a Ranger, not an F-150, I'm sorry.
What are you replacing with?
Excuse me?
What are you replacing with?
A Ranger.
Another Ranger.
Yeah, a Ranger. I had said 150, but it's a Ranger for a Ranger, I'm sorry.
It's the same exact,
Yep,
just buying two vehicles of the same.
yep, yep. Yeah, the 2007 has also has a rusted frame, and that is also a multi-use, department use. Request for $28,000, favorable action for $28,000. The next would be to replace the 2011 Ford Fusion, number 715. This would be the Superintendent of Public Works vehicle, and it is showing a lot of rust, and it's probably best that he has a four-wheel drive where he'd be out in snowstorms and stuff and surveying the area. We'd be replacing this Ford Fusion with a all-wheel drive Explorer. Request is for $38,000, and favorable action for $38,000 was voted by the capital budget. Next would be to replace a 2010 Ford F-150, number 213. This is the Parks superintendent vehicle, and this would be replaced with the same. It's, there was a request for $35,000 for that, and $35,000 out of free cash was voted favorable action. Next is the replace a 2008 Ford Explorer, number 701. This would be the town administrator's vehicle. We're going to replace it with the same. The request is for $35,000, and favorable action was voted for $35,000 on this.
Harry?
Just, you mentioned the two Rangers, are those, what department or what group are they with?
Those were multi-use, so
Building inspector
the building
or-
inspectors would use it, the recreation department uses it. Like Patrick said, during voting, the voting booths are.
It's a pool car, a
Yeah, and I
vehicle
think
of,
does engineering, I mean, Whoever puts in a request out of the town hall would be able to use it, so.
Thank you.
Any other
Mr. Chairman?
questions on vehicles? Yes, Mark?
So do all these vehicles get painted with Walpole town markings?
Well, the decals on them, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, next would be the highway.
Yep.
All set?
Yep.
Next would be the highway department. This is for a solar-powered message board. There's more and more need for this for repairing the road, and maybe if there's detours, or, and especially with the Route 1A project now. So this is like a solar message board. Request was for $19,000. Favorable action was voted for the $19,000. Next is for a 2,500 gallon storage tank for snow and ice. This is to store the liquid. This would be the, I think you're gonna try brine, using the brine.
Salt brine.
It's a salt brine, and this is a liquid, and this is something that they'd be able to pre-treat the roads with rather than straight salt. And I think, Rick, if I'm not mistaken, this can go down a day or two ahead of time, right? And it's still. Depending on the weather conditions. And it would still be active for the storm. So this would be, and then it also, is this going to the tanks that's added for the, to the Sanders?
No,
Or is this just a pre-treat?
This is a separate tank, supplied this is the storage tank that will fill the tank that's on the truck that goes out. So this is a permanently stored,
Okay,
permanently mounted storage. It's not mobile.
okay.
Right, but the brine would also be used along on the salt trucks, right, when they go out, is that?
Correct.
Yeah, so it would be used as a pre-treat and during the storms itself.
Larry?
Is it replacing or is it new? What do you use now?
Right now, we currently, our pre-treatment practices are to use just straight salt with magnesium chloride. This is a liquid brine solution, which is more of an anti-icing agent as opposed to a de-icing agent. So the goal is to get the brine solution onto the street 2 days before the storm or a day before the storm, so you prevent that ice pack buildup. Rather than try to remove it.
And on the solar board, is that new or replacement or an
No.
addition?
No.
Addition to.
So you already
Yeah,
have,
the two that we have now belong to the police department,
The
so.
water department has one, police department, we already
Oh.
try to pirate theirs, but they're pretty stingy with them.
okay, okay. Thank you.
Sorry, chief.
Okay. Public safety?
Okay, the request for that was $22,000, and favorable action was voted on that for the $22,000.
Okay.
Next would be public safety, the police. This request is for a new marked cruiser. It would be an addition to the fleet, and this is preparing for additional new hires in the near future. The request is for $62,685, and that's what was voted favorable action, $62,685 out of free cash.
Chief, is that gonna be fully loaded?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Next would be portable AEDs. This would be phase 1 of 5, and it would actually replace 5 of the AEDs. The current unit's warranty expires in 2024. It's, the intent is to purchase 5 per year for the next 5 years, so we'll have all new ones by the time this expires. The department currently has 18 AEDs in its possession. The request is for $8,000. Favorable action of $8,000 out of free cash was voted favorably. Next would be the police mountain bikes. This would be to replace the 6 10-year-old bikes that the department currently has. There's a real need, the department feels a real need for this, for engaging in the community, and also they're very useful for off-road, like in the town forest or Adams Farm or something. They can access those areas much easily and easier and quickly. The request is for $10,600, and that's what was voted favorable action, $10,600.
Andrew, do you have a
free
question?
cash.
Andrew, did you have a question? You're good? Okay.
No, no. I can follow up through email. My question was about the police cruiser. we can follow up through email.
Okay,
I had a question on that as well.
okay, good, Jeff.
I've never questioned a public safety police item before, but, the justification for the new cruiser, number of officers that are actually on shift versus how many vehicles you actually have in the fleet. Is there a formula for that you can kind of dive into a little bit?
That's my question.
Okay.
So right now, we could have upwards of 5 people on a shift, and on a day shift. And right now, we have a juvenile detective who will be operating a mock cruiser. We have our community resource officer operating a mock cruiser, so that takes away from our fleet. We also need to maintain the vehicles, so if they're always being used, they don't have time to go to the garage, so that leads to maintenance problems down the road. So we're trying right now to expand our department to keep up with the growing population. So in order to get ahead of that, we like to improve the infrastructure that we have now, so we have safe, operable cruisers that are readily available. Also, with the 1A project coming up now, those cruisers might be used on detail, so we hate to have a newer car idling on the side of the road. We can use a car that might be a little bit older. So we're actually going to be able to swap the computer out of the older vehicle to put in the new car, so we're going to save on that a little bit. So the car that we're going to keep won't have a computer in it. We can use it as more of a spare car for training or the details and things of that nature. So, and the new car's also a hybrid too, so it's a little more green than the cars we have now.
I know the previous chief, he had mentioned in the past, he always likes to see that, people aren't using their personal vehicles, but, just seeing the details, I still see a lot of personal vehicles being used, so.
Right, there are times when the contractor won't, or the detail won't require a cruiser.
Okay.
So that way we will take our own cars to those details. If they require them, then we bill the company for the use of the cruiser. Those are more on high-speed areas where you need visibility for the safety of the crew and the officers. It's not always required, but sometimes it is. So it's case by case.
Alrighty.
Andrew, all set?
Andrew, you all set now? Okay. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's it?
Yep. Fire Department?
Next would be the fire department request. First item is to replace the UPS batteries at the main station for backup. These batteries are nearing the end of their 5-year life expectancy, and these are the main backup batteries for the technology systems in the town hall, in the fire station, I'm sorry. The request is for $9,060, and that's what was voted favorable action, $9,060, and this would be out of the ambulance fund. Next would be thermal imaging cameras. Replace the 5 existing cameras and add 1 to the inventory. These are over 20 years old currently, and the new ones are much more advanced. Crucial equipment during fires to find hot spots and maybe even locate people in buildings. The request is for $25,000. Favorable action was voted by capital budget for the $25,000 out of the ambulance fund.
Does that put 1 on each piece of equipment?
No.
No, it's.
Puts it on our frontline pieces.
Okay.
Next would be turnout gear. This article would purchase a total of 20 turnout gears, and there are actually, there is a need for 30 sets right now. No, excuse me, there's a need for 2 sets for all 30 people, is that right? I'm sorry, Tim?
That's correct.
Okay, so this would give 2 sets to each of the 6 new hires that will be coming on board shortly, which is a total of 12, and this will add a second set for 8 of the current firefighters, which, so we would need to purchase 10 more in the future to fully outfit the whole fire department with 2 turnout gears each. The request is for $121,484. Favorable action was voted, $121,484. This is also out of the ambulance fund. Next would be the portable radios. This would be for 13 radios, 8 for new personnel and 5 for the apparatus. The request would be for $57,464. Favorable action was voted, $57,464. That is also out of the ambulance fund. Next would be to replace the F-150 pickup truck. This is to replace the current 1991 that was a hand-me-down from, I'm not sure which department, but it was handed down to the fire department a number of years ago. They're proposing to purchase a F-150 crew cab, and this request is for $50,000, and that's what was voted favorable action, $50,000 out of the ambulance fund.
With the vehicle, does that get decaled with the Walpole Fire Department?
Yeah, it was, I don't know if you've seen the pickup truck it's red with the fire department.
And then I'm curious with,
It'd be exactly the same as the police department has currently, but it would say fire department.
okay, and then with the number of the turnout gear and the portable radios, the 8 new personnel, are these all approved by the town meeting, these additional personnel?
Yeah. Go ahead, Joe. Yes, they are.
So they're all part of the ones that we've hired, we've delayed some, we're bringing them all on?
They're in my budget currently, correct.
Uh-huh. And what will the total personnel be then?
41.
Okay, thank you.
Got Larry.
All this is coming from the ambulance fund, about 260,000 or so. How much is in there currently? Approximately.
I had a feeling you were gonna ask, that's why I'm looking on my phone. Because I
It's been a
recently-
number of years since you got asked that by Larry, so.
I was thinking I don't have the printout. Jody, rough numbers, was that about 1.7?
Usually a 7-figure number.
Yeah. It's doing very well. And I wouldn't go ahead and make these recommendations and make the previous recommendations we had at the last town meeting, because we've been using more and more money from the ambulance fund to offset costs like these and to assist in balancing the budget than we have in years past. But that's because the budget is doing very well. He's very busy. So I'm confident with these numbers here.
Because part of it is also to have a rotation of new ambulances are about, last time I remember, $600,000-$700,000 an ambulance?
No, I don't think it's that high.
No?
For the fire engines are 680 now.
Right,
So,
okay.
what are they, 354 now?
350, 450, depending on what we need for equipment.
And I had asked the chief this year, are we good for this year for the ambulance? Because I'm thinking, and that, now's the year we're doing okay, but we have one more year that the ambulance will be coming up next year in the cycle. So right now, he has 3 ambulances that are active. Keeps the third one as reserve unless he absolutely needs it.
But the idea is that one a year will get replaced.
They run 3-year cycles.
Yeah.
So it goes 3, and then they go 3, and then it goes after, for the last 3 years, it's on reserve status. So we hold each one for 9 years.
Okay, so another one's coming up next year with it, okay.
Correct.
And so are you thinking of using some of that monies for other fire capital items?
Next year, it depends on how much the chief asks for. Honestly, if you go forward with this recommendation, we're gonna be in good shape. We're actually, initially, as part of the 5-year plan, we're gonna do a fire engine this year, and I think wait 2 years and do another fire engine. And I'm sure Ed will get to this, but the reason we're pushing up a fire engine is there's some savings there to be realized. So the ambulance fund is gonna be in pretty good shape. I don't anticipate, we're probably gonna be using 350 or 400,000 as part of the capital cycle next year. I don't plan on probably using any of it for much else, so.
Thank you.
Susan, do you have a comment?
Tell me again, how old is that F-150 pickup?
1991.
It's a 1991.
Do you think we've gotten our money's worth?
30 years worth? Yeah.
And they didn't get it new, so
Rhetorical question.
paint job's good, though. It still looks good, so.
Freshman in college.
Yep. Okay, school department?
Next, all right, school department. The next is classroom blinds. This is to repair and replace the blinds at the 4 elementary schools. It's pretty important to have these, be able to shade these areas, especially with the LCD projectors that they're using. If too much light is coming in, you can't really see the screen or the projectors. Many of them are in disrepair and need replacement. So the request is for, and also this is for all 4 elementary schools. The request is for $95,000, and that's what was voted favorable action, $95,000 out of free cash. Next would be cafeteria table replacement. This would, the location be also at all 4 elementary schools. These tables are older and many are in disrepair. The new ones would also be for multi-purpose. So these are the cafeteria tables that fold up and they're like on wheels and they can be put out of the way, pushed out of the way. And the new tables can actually be turned into benches or seating, so you'd have some lectures, correct? So, all right, so it will make a multi-purpose, and the cafeteria could also be a multi-purpose room with these tables. I did have a question. This was for a total of $75, and there was a surcharge, a K1 surcharge of $2,800 on there, and I asked what it was, but this was, I think, for, I didn't bring my notes right here, but this was for,
COVID-related for additional
Yeah.
transportation costs and commodity costs for building tables.
so it was, yeah, so it was a surcharge on the original quote, so it,
Everybody's getting their share.
that request was for $50,000. Favorable action was voted $50,000 out of free cash. Next is a special education van. The request, it was proposed to purchase an electric hybrid Ford Escape, but between the town administrator and the school department, it was a mutual agreement that this wasn't funded this year, and the $35,000 was not funded through the free cash, and the school is going to go ahead and purchase this with the savings from the current transportation costs that they're saving with the vans that they have now.
Hey, can I just add one thing?
Yep.
So it was fully electric vehicle, the other problem was we don't have the infrastructure yet, the charging
To
station
charge, yeah.
for the vehicle, so we're hoping that that'll come after the first of the year. We'll be able to work something out with an incentive program and then get the vehicle for that.
Okay, next, Bird Middle School softball scoreboard replacement. The current scoreboard is about 20 years old. The controller is not currently working. That request was for $20,000. Town administrator's recommendation was not to fund that this year, and the capital budget also voted no action on that, so not to fund that. Next would be the traffic study at the Elm Street School. There's a need for a solution to prevent queuing out onto Route 27, which is Elm Street, during drop-offs and pickups. Pretty dangerous area where the cars are queuing out there. That's on a corner. It's, you know, cars are driving much faster there. And they want to do a study to try to do all of the queuing inside the property. That request is for $10,000, and favorable action was voted $10,000 out of free cash.
I'm just curious, in this, I mean, it's Elm Street School, it's on 27, what is the study going to tell you?
We don't know.
How to keep the cars off of Route 27 if there's a possibility. It's pretty dangerous with the cars
So it's
queuing
not,
out there,
it's not
so-
looking at 27, it's looking at the Elm Street parking lot, how you might be able to move traffic around.
Figure it's similar to the high school. The other thing is we learned that there might be an opportunity for signaling or signage on that road. So that company that's doing the study would give us information on that as well, so we could maybe do a light, we'll see.
Okay, thank you.
Doug?
I was just curious about the scope, so I think Mark's question just answered a lot of what I was wondering. So I'm all set.
Did Susan have one? Susan, you all set? Jeff? No? Okay. No, he's good. All right.
Next, cultural and recreation. This is pool sanitation system replacement. This is for the center pool, the wading pool in the center, and also the South Walpole pool. Current equipment is old and not very reliable. It's not working properly, and it is absolutely necessary to maintain proper chlorine levels so you can maintain the proper sanitation. The request is for $18,500, and that's what was voted favorable action, $18,500. Next is the Recreation Department's strategic plan, a feasibility study, and a design for services. This would actually be a master plan for the Recreation Department. It would identify areas of improvement for initiatives and maybe improve infrastructure. That request is for $50,000. Favorable action was voted $50,000 out of free cash.
And this would kind of link back to the question you had earlier about Blackburn. That'd be part of the big picture, not just the pools, but Blackburn. What's similar to what they did to the building study about 7, 8 years ago.
So is this a first for this kind of study?
Yeah, and what triggered this, I was out, the pools, Patrick was out this summer, the pools were just, especially South Pool, we were losing a considerable amount of water each year, and Cheryl came over, who runs the pool program, and said, well, the center pool's 1927. And I said, well, I didn't realize it was that old, and we started thinking and talking through it, and said, well, what's the big plan? Eventually, these pools are gonna need to be replaced, they're gonna be hundreds, if not $1 million, who knows what it's gonna be. So just to start that process, similar to what we did with the buildings and the fields.
Thank you.
So this is infrastructure and program?
Infrastructure, programs, pools, that's why 50,000 should cover it all.
Other questions? Okay.
Okay, next item is the 300th Anniversary Committee expenses. This would be, this request is for the first of 4 yearly requests for the 300th town celebration, which would be in 2024. This would be various expenses, whether it's for a parade or promotion stuff or whatever. They're gonna be asking for $50,000 per year for the next 4 years. And that's what the request was, $50,000. Favorable action was voted for $50,000 out of free cash for this.
Is there already a committee? I mean, who's going to
Yes.
control
Bill
this
Buckley.
money and authorize expenditures?
There
Is
is
that to be
already a
determined?
committee.
Yeah.
The board formed it 6, 9 months ago. It's pretty big. Is it 11 or 15 people, Pat? That's 15 people. It's a lot of people. So they tried to get every part of the community represented there. And the thought processes, and I actually went back and pulled, back at the last anniversary, I think they asked for $50,000 from the town initially to get started. So that's why we started with this number. I'm guessing they'll probably come back and ask for some more in the future as they continue to build towards their planning. And they're gonna need to put, I'm assuming they're gonna have a gala somewhere. You're gonna need to put down a deposit for that. So it's,
Do they operate independently, or do they have to come to you with their budget and you approve expenditures? Or
they had to come to us with this request, and they'll have to, I'm sure that committee will put together a plan. I've asked the Recreation Department to serve as the support staff for it, and it'll be run through accounting and the various departments that'll be involved.
Okay,
They just won't be able to write a blank check.
okay.
So, actually, if I could follow up to that one, Jim, would the selectmen have to approve the expenditure, or does the committee have the right to do that?
They're requesting it, but Bill Buckley's the chairman, and Bill knows the process here in town. They'll work with us, and they can't just go out and, put a $20,000 deposit on Lake Pearl or something like that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I am on the call.
Oh.
So we've already spent most of it, and mostly on bobbles and T-shirts. I want to recognize first Lisa Vanderlinden, who's obviously a member of your committee, is also on the 300th, and she's done a tremendous job creating the kind of the bulwark of a community survey. So kind of in a wider way, we want to gauge over the next year or so the type of celebrations that the community wants to hold and that they have an appetite for. And the goal is to, we're working with the high school kids now to create a really cool new logo for the 300th anniversary, to hopefully in the middle of October launch the survey with the logo and the social media presence, and just get people excited about it, and most importantly, create nodules and spaces for people with varying talents, whether they be in the arts and organization and fundraising and in history, to kind of celebrate where we are as a town and where we're going. But I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize Ms. Vanderlinden for all of her work, kind of getting the bones together of how we're going to depart, but in this request, we just kind of looked at our predecessors at the 250 and 275 to see kind of what their best practices were, how they organize themselves. And I think there's going to be a tremendous amount of public input. And again, we're a committee of the select board, so they're going to write the checks. And in my view, if you'd like to give me a blank check, I'd be more than happy to throw you a hell of a party. So, as would Lisa, for sure.
Nice guy, but no.
Larry?
Did I hear it right? This is the first of a few requests, 50 this year, 50, 50, 50?
I'm guessing, Patrick just reminded me, so the budget for the 250 anniversary in '74 was $50,000, which he calculated. In today's dollars, that's $259,000. So I'm guessing they probably are going to come back, but I think Bill will work with this office and Recreation to plan, and obviously, they're gonna have to justify coming back before and asking for more.
Is it going to be a mix of any private funding, fundraising, or whatever?
I think that's the hope, correct, Bill?
Through you, Mr. Chair. That is the hope, and we just also want to be very mindful of the fact that we have very generous people in our community, but we are asking the very generous people in our community to be very generous for new fields and for the food pantry and for possibly a new middle school. And so I think there's a different, there's a precedent for this type of kind of expenditure of money ahead of the event. And I know we're going to have really extensive conversations in the fall about fundraising and gathering kind of different groups who have long histories of fundraising in the town together to see if they'd like to lend a hand. And we've also really started to look at what other towns around us have done. Rep. Phillips gave me the Sharon 250 kind of book that they did a few years ago, and they raised a lot of money from different community groups as well. But the price gets up there, especially if you're trying to put on like a really big parade and you try to get outside groups to perform in said parade or things of that nature. You want to bring additional concerts on the common in. All that stuff starts to kind of snowball.
All righty.
Good. Next is Finance Department. This is a Munis Financial Software version upgrade. The current software support expires in 2022. The new software will be a Tyler Hub version 2019, 2019.1. The request is for $11,000. Favorable action was voted for the $11,000 out of free cash. So that is Article 7. Favorable action by the Capital Budget Committee was taken in the amount of $1,322,793. The breakdown of that is free cash, $1,059,785, and the ambulance revolving fund, $263,008.
No other questions on Article 7? On to 8.
Okay, Article 8, street and drainage improvements. This is for a culvert repair on Gould Street that is in the vicinity of Smith Ave. Replace a drain pipe under the roadway and repair the road itself. Request is for $15,000. Favorable action was taken for the $15,000. And this was intended to be done in-house, Rick?
Correct.
Okay. Next would be the guardrail repair on Elm Street and at various other locations throughout the town. This would be to repair guardrails that damage caused, repairs from storm damage and also from car accidents. Request is for $14,900. Favorable action was taken for $14,900 out of free cash. Hot fiber crack seal. This is to seal cracks in roadways system-wide throughout the town. This preserves the asphalt, prevents water from getting into cracks, freezing, and lifting it. This is a program that we try to continue every year. The request is for $45,000. It was recommended by administration, $35,000, and that's what capital budget approved, voted favorable action was $35,000 out of free cash. Next would be paving system-wide. This would be the Chapter 90 funds, and this would be, the paving would be according to the pavement master plan and priorities. The request on this was for $771,099, and this favorable action was taken for the $771,099, and that would be Chapter 90 money. Article 8, the total request was for $835. The numbers are driving me nuts. For $835,999. Favorable action was taken, voted 7-0. The breakdown of that, free cash was $64,900. Chapter 90 money was the $771,099. Is that?
Larry?
The Chapter 9 money, is that I can't remember, is that a formula?
It's a formula based on the amount of roads accepted throughout by the town. That's why one of your last articles that you'll be asked to consider is the street acceptances. You guys vote on it, town meeting has to vote on it. So every year, once the streets get accepted, they go into the formula that Rick and Donna submit to the state for reimbursement, so.
And that's funded gas tax or excise tax or combination? Thank you.
Town borrowing?
What's that? Yep, Article 9, this is equipment and infrastructure improvements, and this is through borrowing. This is to resurface roadways, sidewalks, and parking lots system-wide. The breakdown as it looks right now, roadways resurfacing would be about $750,000, sidewalks would be about $350,000, and parking lots would be about $400,000. The request was for $1.5 million. Administration recommended $1,050,000, and that's what the capital budget voted favorable action was, a $1,050,000, and that would be out of borrowing.
Okay, Larry.
Couple questions. What was cut out of the 1.5 to get to?
So I leave it mostly up to the discretion of the DPW director to figure out how to spend it. My thought process on this is I didn't cut any one particular thing. I wanted to keep the borrowing down on this one because I was mindful. Initially, Jody and I had programmed in the Allen Dam project, the full funding at the $1.5 million for this year. We pulled it and pushed it to next year, but I didn't want to have that money already spoken for because we had a placeholder for it next year to fit in to what we were borrowing. So I wanted to make it work. This is the most amount we've ever borrowed for a street improvement program. We used to do 200. Last year, I think we went up to 400, right, Rick? And so I just thought, let's rein this in a little bit because I know I have other projects coming a few years down the road, and I don't want to be paying for this road borrowing for 10 or 15 years. We're trying to keep it within 7, yeah. So I want to keep it tight so it's not spread out too long there.
So between the Chapter 90 and this is approximately about 1.8. And we spent last year $1 million?
400 plus about 700.
About 900,000.
So are we trying to play, in a sense, catch up with kind of maybe some deferred or stuff we haven't been able to get to?
Yeah, the thought process on this one, when we started the roads ban, I think it's almost 10 years old now, which was the 200. That was started under Michael and Bob O'Brien because the thought process was, let's try to keep up with, because Chapter 90 never keeps up with the road replacement money that we actually need. Let's try to keep up with that as much as possible. So this is more or less doing the most we've ever done in a long time. And as far as, I'll let you talk about the fire engine before we get into that with the good news, so anyhow.
And the borrowing, you mentioned 5 years, 7 years, 10 years?
7.
7?
Yeah.
What's borrowing cost these days?
Last time we went out to borrow for the fields, which was back in the spring, it was 1.06%.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can you borrow some from me?
Okay. Replacement engine?
Okay, this is, next article is to replace 2 engines, a 2009 E1 and the 1999 E1 fire engines, one at each station. One is at Central Station, one is in East Walpole. The 2009 has had more than $121,000 in repairs since it was bought 12 years ago. And the main reason for that is it was the first year that these trucks had to have the emissions equipment on it, and it's been a nightmare. Am I correct, Rick? It's been a nightmare. It's caused all kinds of problems, so this truck, it needs to go. And then the 1999 is, like you said about the pickup truck, I think we got our money's worth out of this one, too. So that total request was for $1,320,000, but the night that the chief came in to talk to us, he was just notified that they had received a $545,000 grant towards the fire engines. So instead of the 1.320, we're gonna, we voted favorable action for $775,000 out of borrowing. And that would be for the two engines. And originally, the two engines weren't gonna be bought in this 1 year, but the price is escalating quite rapidly, so we were in a position to buy the two of them this year, and that's what makes sense to do.
Denny first.
Yeah, we're borrowing, but we've got $2+ million in the ambulance fund. Is there, well,
But we're also spending some of that. How much, do you remember how much we spent to balance the budget on that one, Jody? Was it? I'll get you the ambulance. Yeah, it might be 770. So we used 770 of it to balance the budget for this year, you know, cover the firefighters' cost and everything. And then however much we're using out of it now.
Something, 260?
260 or something. So I just don't want to get into a position where we spend that fund down to, you know, zero or something. I want to keep a good, strong balance in there because I know the ambulance is coming up next year, so.
Okay.
And the thought process behind this fire truck, I had to be sold on this idea, even before I knew we were gonna get the 545. We met with Greenwood, the dealer in this room, myself, Jody, Patrick, the deputy the fire chief, and I basically said, listen, tell me why we should buy two fire engines at the same time. Why does it make sense to us, and what's the best deal we can get? The biggest selling point to me was, well, you used to see fire trucks go up anywhere from 2 to 5% each year. The last few years, they've seen it go up 10% a year. So I was looking at saving $140,000 because the next fire truck was going to be replaced in 2 years. And with the low interest rates, I thought we could take advantage of it at this point. It made sense to me even before we got that there. And the deputy and the chief working so hard to get that grant was just a bonus. And we've talked about, well, what's the trade-in value for these two trucks? The older one, I think he told me 3,000, and the 09, he told me 12. We'd be better off selling it on our own. And we recently sold off one to the city of New Bedford within the last few years. We didn't make a ton of money off it, but we made more money than we would have if we traded it in. And, you know, it goes to another community who it's a reserve truck for them.
And the loan period on these,
The
vehicles?
The expected life
Oh,
expectancy?
no, the term of the loan.
Borrowing.
Oh,
is that 7 years too?
Are you going
wasn't
10?
a long one. I thought it was like 10, because I didn't want to.
7 or 10.
Yeah, I didn't want to stretch it out too far. The life expectancy of these trucks is about 20 years.
Okay. Larry?
In our case, 30.
Yeah.
I take it, you mentioned one of them's going to East Walpole. I would, because of that old station and the width and all that of those doors, I assume it has to be specially designed or whatever to fit?
One of the things we've talked about is making sure that these trucks are basically identical. Fits into, obviously it'll fit into this station, but fits into both of them will fit into, be the same truck, they'll be able to fit into there. And I know that the chief, part of the condition of the grant was that you gotta get rid of the 1985 engine that has no computers. It isn't really used, it's more or less a parade piece. So we'll likely be getting rid of the 85, and it's more of a matter. I think we talked a little bit about maybe keeping the 99 as a reserve piece to just keep the number of vehicles. Is that what you were gonna get at, Chief? Yeah.
Is it a federal grant? What kind of grant is it?
Federal grant.
Federal for fire safety, whatever?
it's a AFG grant, which is Assistance to Firefighters Grant. Highly competitive grant. The deputy spent a tremendous amount of time writing the grant, and we're very fortunate that he got it. The reason that we got it is because we used the 1985 engine as the piece. Federal government came back and told us that we can no longer use that truck for response. So as part of accepting the grant, that truck has to, we don't really use it much anymore other than a parade piece anyways, so that has to come out of service altogether. So that's why we need to look at keeping the other truck for a reserve piece. Engine, the 99 does fit in both stations. That's one of the reasons that we're keeping it. The 09 does too, but the 09 has serious issues with the regen system. Every time the regen system fails, which is every time, it costs me $8,000 to $10,000 to have it fixed. And that's happening more and more frequently. There's also frame rail issues with that 09 truck from the road salts and everything else that's used on the roads now and during the wintertime. We're out on the highway with that truck all the time. There's a lot of scale on that truck. So that's why that truck really needs to go. That's why I pushed the 09 up forward. To answer your question, both of the trucks that we will be getting will both be able to fit in all of our stations so that, as needed, so.
I agree with Denny. I think maybe not all of it, but some of it should come out of the ambulance fund, 250, 275, whatever. Because it sounds like we have an excess, and I just think I'd rather use that cash we've been, using wisely, or getting a lot of revenue from the service, and finance less debt. I know it's cheap, but it's still debt. We're still gonna pay for it. I'm good. Thank you.
Any other questions for Article 9? Andrew, yep.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to engage with the debate on whether to borrow or pay out of the ambulance revolving fund. I'd be inclined to borrow. I mean, we heard it from the town administrator and the finance team. Interest rates are basically 1% for municipal governments to borrow. Yes, it's more debt, but this has never been a more favorable time to make investments that we're going to need to make anyway. And let someone else take on the financial risk, frankly, and let us keep accruing and stocking away. I mean, think about it. We have the second highest rating for our bond rating. So I don't think the issue here is that we have too much debt, because we have a near exemplary bond rating. So I think take advantage of the low interest rates, make the investments. Let's do it as planned.
Any other questions or comments? Those are our articles for tonight. I'll entertain a motion to start with number 6.
Let me just, Doug, did you have any questions?
No, I was all set.
Okay. I'll offer a motion for favorable action, Article 6, in the amount of $4,417,295, of which $4,390,000 is from free cash, and $27,295 is from reappropriation of prior year capital.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Susan. Okay. In favor, Denny?
Yes.
Josette?
Yes.
Ally?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Lucy's not here. Jean?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Mark Sullivan?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
And myself is a yes. Favorable action, 14-0-0. Article 7.
Motion for favorable action in the amount of $1,322,793, of which $1,059,785 is from free cash, and $263,008 is from the ambulance fund.
Second?
Denny, seconded by Susan. In favor, Denny?
Yes.
Josette?
Yes.
Ally?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Jean,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Mark,
No.
Lisa,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
and myself is a yes.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, 1310.
So I'm voting no because I don't want to put any money into the retirement assessment study.
We didn't put any in there.
We didn't.
It was zero.
Zero.
That's something that we should have gone
Oh, I
back to
thought-
have
but
that
it-
conversation, because we, capital
I
budget,
misunderstood then, I would change my vote to yes.
Yes, okay,
Yeah.
1400.
we repurposed that money into.
Put it back into
um,
6.
Back
Okay.
into 6.
Apologies, I misunderstood.
No problem.
Article 8, street and drainage.
Motion for favorable action in the amount of $835,999, of which $64,900 is from free cash, and $771,099 is from Chapter 90 funds.
I'll second.
Seconded. In favor, Denny,
Yes.
Josette,
Yes.
Ally,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Jean,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
and myself, yes. 1400. Article 9, borrowing.
Motion for favorable action in the amount of $1,825,000 coming from general fund borrowing.
I'll second.
Second.
So we can't, I have a question. We can't amend this. You're making a motion, so we're gonna go with that. We can't amend it to say, make it, instead of 775 for the truck,
The
you
way
know,
to.
the combination of
The way
funding.
to amend it is to get the vote defeated, and therefore put a substitute motion in.
Fair enough.
Okay. So, all in favor of full borrowing? Denny,
Yes.
Josette,
Yes.
Ally,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Jean,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Larry.
No, I support the fire trucks, but I think we should use some more of the ambulance fund.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. 1310, motion carries. There being nothing else on our agenda, Jim,
Can I
did you
just
have
give
any
you a quick
comments?
update?
Sure.
Ed made a motion towards me. So capital budget did consider the sewer and water articles. You have their recommendations in front of you here. Just a couple of notes on that. So Superintendent Gustafson, Rick, I'm not sure, I'm gonna ask the sewer and water commissioners to post a meeting for the same night that you guys meet, so they can attend and talk about their request, but you have their recommendations in front of you. Scott will present, some of the background and the reasoning why these items are being requested. I would note that I anticipate article number 13, which is the sewer system expansion at $1,025,000. I expect that note to no longer be on this list come, I think you're set to talk about this next Thursday. I've received some word from commissioners, and again, I haven't talked to them even two at a time. It's one-on-one, and Rick's talked to a couple of them. I don't think they're gonna ask to push forward that article altogether. So I'll take it off the warrant because it's enough time. The select board's gonna sign the warrant the next day, so that'll vanish, and we'll probably just have 17 articles instead of the 18. But Scott will be in, and I'm hoping a couple of the commissioners come in to talk to you about it too next week. So a couple of notes on my end that I took during the discussion. What I want to get you guys is, I'll send this out probably before the meeting next Thursday, because you get the school department on Monday. Some information on the ambulance fund. We have the history going back to the 2000s. I don't know if it's 06 or 08, but I'll get you the history there, so you'll be able to look and see what we've built, what we've done with that account since we've established it. So just so you have a history there, Larry. I also want to get you guys the borrowing spreadsheet that Jody and I have been working on all summer, basically outlining where do all the pieces fit in the puzzle, and where do we stand, what are we looking at for future numbers, One number that'll jump out to you, and we talked a little bit about it with the capital stabilization article, is the high school expansion or something with the high school. I think we penciled in 20 million, Jody? Does that sound about right? High school, yeah. I think so. Yeah, and that's just a spitball number. We want to put something in there because we want to get, first of all, let you folks know that we're planning on this eventually, and we want to figure out what year is it going to fit in, where do we have deficits and everything if we have a $20 million borrowing within the next 5 or so years. So at least you can get a sense of how is what you voted tonight, how is it going to impact things, so.
Jim, just another follow-up is the Norfolk County pension assessment. We know that we're playing catch-up at a certain dollar amount. Is that still projected to come off sometime between 28 and 30?
The last time I asked, and Richard Peel asked, and he got the same answer I received back in the spring, so yes.
So somewhere between 2028 to 2030, we'll be all caught up on our.
Yeah, they haven't changed the
assessments.
projection since we last talked about it.
But that frees up like $4.5 million a year.
Yeah, and that,
from our budget.
when we talked about it in 18, it was, let's agree to place that money towards, I think it was 4 million, it was in the
Between
millions.
OPEB and stabilization.
Put it towards OPEB, consistently just budget it towards OPEB until you get it paid, you know, the liability off, and it really sped up our liability paid out, so.
Have we heard anything further about the Norfolk County Retirement Board coming here for a meeting?
No, we haven't, but I'll reach out again to Kathleen.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, actually, Lisa was gonna do that, yeah. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
And, I was
maybe after town meeting, we can reconvene, get an update on that, and then we can kind of like go into the budget process with that in the background.
Yeah, and they've been more than responsive to when we reach out and ask for questions, and now that Lisa's on their board, it's even more helpful. And I'm gonna pull the deed restriction for Blackburn, just so you can see what I was looking at a few years ago, to get a sense. And I know some of you would like to probably just see a nice couple of basketball courts up top or something, if we could ever do it, so. If you need anything else, let me know.
It was nice, excuse me, it was nice to see on the capital budget that Blackburn is having air conditioning as I work in the polls in the summer. And it gets 100 degrees in there, and we never have enough fans and such.
Even then, with the dances they used to have in there, the kids would generate so much heat. You have all
Exactly, the windows would be
all the
all
windows are
steamed
open in
up.
January, and it's like, it's still hot in there. Yes, Larry.
Would it be, I don't know, maybe you've already received this, but it would be possible for us to get a copy of the fiscal year-end audit and also the management letter?
Oh, yeah, we definitely.
Maybe you already have, I don't know.
We're usually there. Yeah. they're
Yeah,
there.
the one that
There,
was
yeah.
done,
The most recent one.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
that'd be
No
great
problem.
for everybody. And do we, I'm reliving a little bit of the past here, after the fall business, we sometimes in the past have gone, and with COVID, it's not really doable, but we toured town hall, a lot of the buildings, you know, instead of a meeting, a Tuesday night, or, you know, and just found out kind of where things are going. We saw fire, water, I remember we walked through schools, water plant, all kinds of stuff. I mean, just walking through this building, seeing what people are doing, and just discussing their needs and what's going on was, to me, educational. But I'm just throwing it out
We
there.
haven't done it in a few years, but
It was about 3 years ago when we were proposing the fire department, the school, the library, the police, the new maintenance shed. We toured all those buildings, and the school took us through on 3 different occasions to various schools to show what was being done to keep them up and what was the real need. Yeah, the Band-Aids that we need to replace.
Yes.
Yeah, and actually, we're meeting Monday, 7 o'clock at the auditorium at Byrd Middle School for 2 articles, including the middle school, proposed middle school project.
Sure, we can do a roadshow, no problem. Set that up after.
Thank you.
So I'm curious, with regards to Monday's meeting, we meet at the auditorium, is it just a finance committee, is it an open public meeting? I mean, is this
Our
another?
meetings are open to the public, but the idea was to be in the building and be able
It
to
will
take.
not be a hybrid meeting. We don't have the capabilities of doing a hybrid meeting at that location, so.
Yeah, you have to
So
be.
it's the finance committee meeting at the Byrd, there's not a general public meeting about the middle school project?
The reasoning behind this, and Bridget, jump in, we want to do as many community outreach forums for everyone to come in. We're gonna do one for town meeting members right before town meeting. Where the select board are gonna have a meeting at the Johnson Middle School on the 28th of September. We're doing one at the Council on Aging, so we wanna get people input from everyone, so anyone's welcome to attend. Brian and Bridget are gonna have a presentation. They're gonna run through with you folks that evening, a PowerPoint detailing some of the numbers and the costs and everything.
Happy will be there too.
They're the designer.
I've never been to Bird. Do you get to the auditorium? Do you,
Go in the main entrance, take a right, and just kind of keep going down.
Will we have our new fold-up tables to benches back?
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, if there's public attendance, it's up to the discretion of the finance committee if we want to open it up for public comment or just basically make it informational for everybody in attendance, and then we'll take our vote.
You should probably put that on the agenda if you're going to, public forum. We used to, just give, if you don't, people can say they don't have the
Well,
right.
through you, there is going to be a forum at Bird
That's
Middle
what I was
School.
just gonna
Not-
ask.
not this
After
Monday.
the
Right,
FitCon?
so this is our,
There'll be another one.
right,
Okay.
for the community.
We have an agenda set for Monday, right?
Right.
Yes.
Which is,
It's
the
the appropriations.
Transfers for the Medicare money and the
Appropriations
parking
for
money,
Medicare.
and then the other
The
article.
override. Yeah.
okay.
For the building.
Any other-
The big giant one.
Jim, actually, Jody first?
Posted on the chat, I think Lisa posted something about the Norfolk County retirement.
I don't know.
If they can see it.
Can you pull it up
Can't
on,
see it.
is there any comments in the chat?
Can you see me? Hi, so I posted on the chat that we were discussing about the Norfolk County Retirement Board coming out, but we're back to COVID restrictions, especially with Norfolk County. They're pretty strict, so until those are lifted again, they're not gonna go out and do any meetings anytime soon.
Okay.
But you could join
They
via
could-
Zoom?
They could join a Zoom and we can have.
Well,
them on the screen.
they're working on that. They're not very technically savvy there yet, so we're barely doing Zoom ourselves, so. I'll keep you posted, though.
Thank you.
Let us know. I can
You're
come down
welcome.
and set up a Zoom chat on your
Yeah.
computer pretty easily.
Mr. Chairman, just to clarify, we still had Articles 10, 11, and 12. Are you going to want me to come back when you discuss those, or?
No, we can just deal directly with sewer and water.
Excuse me?
We'll just deal directly with sewer and water on
Okay,
those.
all right, so our votes were all favorable action, but,
Thank you.
Unless you
You
want
did
to.
a good
and
job.
then Josette can talk about the sewer extension.
You're always welcome if you want.
There being nothing else before us tonight, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
By Jeff, second by Susan. Let me find Jeff. Susan. All in favor of adjourning? Denny?
Yes.
Josette?
Yes.
And, Ally?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
Steve?
yes.
Susan?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Larry? And myself. 14:00, we stand adjourned until Monday night at the Bird Middle School.
7, right?
7 o'clock.